First up is House File 901. Representative Mueller, who we never see in this committee anymore nowadays, is here to present House File 901, and the chair, Representative Mueller, moves to refer House File 901 to the General Register. Welcome to the committee, Representative Mueller, and I believe you have an author's amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do. I have the A1 amendment that just puts the bill in the shape I desire.
Very well. Representative Johnson, you're okay with a voice vote for the author's amendment?
Yes, I am.
Very well, thank you. Very well then, the chair moves to amend House File 901 with the A1 amendment. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Opposed, same sign. Motion prevails, and House File 901 as amended with the A1 amendment is before us. Representative Mueller.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. It's nice to be back with you today. So House File 901 is a bill related to prosecutor-initiated resentencing. And as a previous member of this committee, we heard from people who received 40 years of probation for drug offenses. We heard from people who have complied with treatment and programming, whose probation officers or correction officials support their release from incarceration or probation, but there's no way for them to seek consideration of that. Prosecutors are ethically required to be ministers of justice, and this legislation recognizes the role that prosecutors have as ministers of justice by enabling them to seek sentence reductions for people who have been rehabilitated. The bill also provides incentives to those who have entered the system to seek programming and comply with the terms of their sentences. In drafting this legislation, we carefully considered victim rights and ensured that they are included throughout this process. We also wanted to make sure that courts and county attorneys could use existing resources. In cases where a prosecutor seeks the sentencing adjustment, the court will determine if substantial and compelling reasons exist to make that adjustment. The court will consider numerous factors in making the determination to modify a sentence. We have a number of supporters, including the Second Chance Coalition, the Ramsey County Attorney's Office, the Hennepin County Attorney's Office, the Attorney General's Office, and the Minnesota Coalition Against Sexual Assault. A support letter from the Department of Corrections is in your packets. I'll note that we've also received some helpful feedback from OJP yesterday. It wasn't in time for an amendment, but it's related to some technical language regarding the victim-related provisions that we can, I'd be happy to talk about that today if you have questions. There is no fiscal cost, and this actually has the potential to reduce costs spent on incarcerating or supervising people who have been rehabilitated and are not a threat to public safety. And with that, Mr. Chair, I have one testifier, and then I have some other people on hand to answer questions that you and other committee members may have.
Very well, thank you, Representative Mueller. You have, I believe, John Choi, Ramsey County Attorney. County Attorney Choi, if you can come forward, state your name for the record and give us your testimony.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. For the record, my name is John Choi, and I have the honor and pleasure to serve the people of Ramsey County as their county attorney. And I come before you today to state my strong support for this bill, House File 901, and the leadership that Representative Mueller is providing aside from being a legislator, she's also a prosecutor, and she said it so well, that our duty as prosecutors is to be a minister of justice. And I think that it's important that prosecutors never forget that our duty to justice should extend beyond after we have handled the case, beyond conviction, beyond the actual imposition of the sentence, but we should actually care about what happens to people's rehabilitation and what happens in prison. Otherwise, what we're really doing is we're locking people up and throwing away the key and moving on to the next case. And so this bill, in my opinion, poses a great opportunity for prosecutors to really dig deeper in our role as ministers of justice for our community, to ensure that the value in our justice system of redemption, rehabilitation, and reconciliation is alive and well. I know for a fact that within our families and places of worship across the state, those values are alive and well. And what this bill allows for is to ensure that in our criminal justice system, in how we think about corrections in the state, that we actually show these important values in the context of the people that have gone through our systems and then are in correctional settings. And so I am very much just really excited about this possibility. This does not impose any obligation on the part of any prosecutor to do anything. But what it does do is it provides a uniform way across the state for communities and elected chief prosecutors to have conversations about people that are currently in prison or who are on probation with extended, really long periods of length, and have those conversations. And it gives us the option or the ability to do something if justice requires it. And so I'm speaking here today, not as a member of the Minnesota County Attorneys Association. The County Attorneys Association has not taken a position on this bill because it has not come before our board, but it will as a part of our next meeting. And both Mike Freeman and I've talked to other colleagues, and I hope that we'll be able to come back to you, Mr. Chairman, with the full support of the Minnesota County Attorneys Association, because when we really focus on this bill, I know that people recognize the value that it can have to improve the quality of justice in the state of Minnesota. So thank you so much.
Thank you, County Attorney Choi. Thank you for your work on this, and I do look forward to hearing from the MCAA hopefully soon. Representative Mueller, I don't believe you have any other testifiers. So why don't we just jump right into discussion with the committee members? Then we'll start with Representative Raleigh. Representative Raleigh.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate it very much. I've got a couple questions that kind of all feed into each other. And so just for the chair's pleasure, I've got, I think, 3 questions.
Thank you.
The first question, Mr. Chair, is the bill allows the Commissioner of Corrections to request that a prosecutor files for a reduced sentence. Why is that necessary in this language? And can you help me understand what that does and how it changes it, please?
Representative Mueller.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Representative Raleigh, for that question. It's an excellent question. So what we're hearing from the Department of Corrections, they are really the ones who are knowledgeable about whether a person is completing programming, what their rehabilitation efforts have been while they're incarcerated, have they had any violations or things like that. And so as prosecutors, really once we've sort of completed our task, we don't really have that information. And so that's really one way to get at who those people are who are incarcerated who might meet the requirements for this, but we wouldn't otherwise know about.
Representative Raleigh.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The bill, as my understanding and my reading of the bill, it allows the offender themselves to request that a prosecutor file a petition, excuse me. I guess I'd be interested in finding out from the testifier, would this encourage every offender to then request for a reduced sentence? And would it have the unintended consequences of clogging up the system, Mr. Chair?
County Attorney Choi.
Mr. Chairman and Representative, thank you so much for that question. And I also wanted to, if it's okay with you, Mr. Chair, to invite Hillary Blout, who is with the Organization for the People, who has worked in California. So we are doing this because there has been a really good experience on a very bipartisan basis in the state of California with rural district attorneys in California and urban ones. And so there's a lot of support there. And the experience is that, no, that's not the case at all. And in fact, I think that prosecutors, it's completely within their discretion. And the decision not to review something is like not appealable or anything like that. It's purely within the discretion of the elected county attorney to determine how they wish to go about doing this, right? So some county attorneys or DAs in California, they haven't engaged in this and they don't want to do it. But then there's a number of them. And I want to make sure that this committee is very clear that it's conservatives and liberal county district attorneys that have been utilizing this approach, and it's been working very well, where they set up the parameters. They say these are the cases that we're interested in. Many of them work with Hillary Blout's organization, where they do some of the screening. So as Representative Mueller talked about, it's important for us to get that information from maybe corrections, but we can utilize partners, nonprofit organizations to help do some of that vetting. And of course, we also have obligations for the victim, to the victim. And so we will have them to be a part of the process. But I will also tell you that what I have found when we have that right situation, you will see many victims across the state that they want to exhibit some aspect of mercy when they recognize that that justice could be further even accomplished with rehabilitation, and they see some of those things. Oftentimes victims are very happy to be in a place to be involved with that in some way, and I think there's really creative ways to even maybe help the victim have more healing as a part of this process. And so I would invite, if it's okay with you, Mr. Chair, I think Hillary Blout from California just has so much wisdom to share with this committee, because they've been working with district attorneys of all stripes in California, making this happen. And we don't think that this is going to be this huge floodgate, because we get to control it.
Well, we are on a very tight timeline, but I do want to welcome Ms. Blout. I presume virtually to Minnesota. Ms. Blout, if you can state your name for the record. And really the direct question is whether or not, I think the direct question here is whether or not such an effort or this legislation in your state, whether that's clogged the courts. Ms. Blout.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you for having me virtually. Yes, my name is Hillary Blout, and I'm the executive director of For the People. And so we're a California-based organization, and we worked on the first law of this type. And so this law went into effect in 2019, and that's correct. We have not, it has not been something that has clogged the court, primarily because it goes through the DA's offices here in California. And that review has been very careful and methodical, again, because prosecutors are ministers of justice, balancing equity and also public safety. So we have not seen a flooding of the courts. As County Attorney Choi has said, there have been prosecutors here, elected prosecutors, that have opted in, and others that have simply opted out. And what's interesting, though, I want to just add, is that what we have seen in terms of the message getting out about this bill in the prison is we've actually heard and we've actually seen it incentivize people in prison. They start hearing that there are laws now where their conduct, positive behavior is being rewarded. We're starting to hear that more and more people are wanting to complete classes, finish their education, do remorse work and insight work. And then the last thing that I'll add, as County Attorney Choi also said, is that on the back end, when these cases are coming back to the court and prosecutors are reaching out to the victims are actually having an opportunity to get these types of remorse letters. Many of the people that we've worked with 10, 15, 20 years ago, they were not ready to be fully accountable and be able to share that insight. And so on the back end, we're actually able to provide some of that closure and some of that healing to the victims that have been involved in the cases that we've worked on.
Sounds like some powerful early outcomes happening in California. I look forward to seeing how that continues to progress, considering that your legislation has been on the books for a couple of years here. Representative Raleigh.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Final question is, in the bill, I don't see that the judge that presided over the original offender's reduction petition, or excuse me, the judge that's looking to reduce the sentence has to work with the original judge that presided over the original sentence. And I'm sorry, I'm constructing that sentence very poorly. And I'm not a guy who wants to do a bunch of mandates, but mechanically, how do you see the judge that is considering a reduction working with the original presiding judge? And is there language that we may want to use that would strengthen it, or do you think it's good now, Mr. Chair?
Great inquiry. Representative Mueller.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I think it's similar to how post-conviction claims would work now. Typically, they're given to the same judge who handled the case, but sometimes those judges have retired or maybe have moved on to other divisions. And so then the chief judge, at least where I work, will assign that case to another judge. So I don't think you could require it to go to the same judge just
Agreed.
because, like I said, you know, they've retired or have moved on. I don't know if County Attorney Choi has anything to add to that.
Other Attorney Choi.
Mr. Chairman and Representative, we have pretty much the same practice or experience here. I think what would happen is the chief judge would assign it to the original judge, but in the event that that person isn't available, then they would just make a new assignment. And I think they might even use the same judge seat. So the judge who happens to occupy that particular judge's seat would get it.
Representative Raleigh.
Mr. Chair, thank you very much. I'm satisfied.
Thank you, Representative Raleigh. Representative Johnson.
Chair Mariani, just a couple things here. I do have some, actually a lot of concerns on this bill. You talked about the victims being involved. Reading through the bill, well, maybe the author can explain to me why I only found victim one time in here. And that is the names of any victims if they were to be identified. It doesn't say even require the victims to be notified or be part of this program. I think that needs to be changed because the victims are a huge part of the thing. They have a lot of say in the sentencing because they are the victims. And maybe I can get an answer why there isn't any requirements for the victim to be part of the process and instead of just being named.
Representative Mueller.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Representative Johnson, the victims are actually in the bill 3 times. The first one is before the prosecutor even files the petition, the prosecutor shall make a good faith effort to seek input from the victim. So that's at line 1.16 and 1.18. And then once the petition, the decision is made to file the petition, again, the prosecutor has to make a good faith effort to notify the victim of the petition. That's at lines 3.6. And then finally, when a hearing is scheduled, the prosecutor again will notify the victim of that hearing and then the right to submit any kind of statements either in writing or orally, and that's at line 3.25. So we do have the victim providing input throughout this process. That's really important to us.
Representative Johnson.
Chair Mariani, Representative Mueller. Yes, a little input. I don't think the victim is being considered enough. They talked about the one testifier talked about what's going on in California. What wasn't stated is the fact that there's a recall petition going on the LA County Attorney right now because of stuff like this. They're using a study that was bought and paid for by George Soros with limited information. And it's the victims that are pushing the study. They're pushing the recall. This bill needs a lot of work. In fact, if I remember right, Chair Mariani, the motion was to send it to the General Register. There's a number of things in here requiring the courts and requiring the prosecutors to do. It creates new sentencing reduction petition that must be heard by the courts. And as amended, it requires judges to complete the sentencing worksheets. With the Sentencing Guidelines Commission, it's doing requirements for the courts. This needs to go to judiciary, not the General Register. I'm going to make that clear up front. Also, maybe County Attorney Choi can answer this question. Now, if there's a reduction, is this, because it's more than likely going to be well outside the sentencing guidelines recommendations, which is the new judge who never heard anything about the crime going to have to do, and I guess how is he going to manage to do a downward departure form for departing on the sentencing guidelines?
County Attorney Choi, downward departure.
Mr. Chairman, I think this bill and this proposed new law sets the framework upon how the judge could make this determination. So it's creating that very clear process. So I don't know if that's answering your question. I don't know if Representative Mueller has any further answer to that, but I think what you're asking for is like, how do you mechanically do a downward departure? And the way that I view this law is that it creates the mechanism by which you can do the resentencing, and it provides the procedure that you use in appropriate situations where the prosecutor has exercised their discretion given to him or her by this new law.
Sounds like a well-constructed piece of legislation. Representative Johnson.
Okay, that still doesn't explain completely, but I'll let it go at that. Because downward departure forms are designed so if they go outside the guidelines put together by the Sentencing Guidelines Commission, which this body put together to come up with the proper sentences. But whatever.
Mr. Chairman?
But I have County Attorney Choi, you had your time to speak. This is my turn. Now, the other issue I have, getting back to where I was trying to get my thoughts together again. I'm just wondering if we're going to be starting to do this. I'm wondering, for reducing sentence, if the people are behaving in prison, should we have a mechanism to resentence if they're not behaving in prison? It's the same thing. If they're not going to behave, we should extend. Is by what this says. If they behave, we reduce. So I have a lot of problems with this, and the county attorneys are supposed to represent the victims. I have a tough time with this because the way this bill is written, although they notify and obtain information and what was the word? Reasonable have to seek input, the victim is left out of this. And I think that's a shame. And with that, right now, even though it should go to judiciary, I'm pretty confident the chair will not do that. But in the current structure, I can't support this bill. Thank you.
Very well. Representative Johnson, this issue has come up before, and what goes to judiciary is certainly appropriate to raise it. We've had conversations with the judiciary chair. There is a discretion that we allow one another on this. We talked very carefully about what bills need to be absolutely vetted, and there's a number of areas where the chairs certainly have the appropriate authority to basically say, no, I don't need to see this in my particular committee. You can certainly bring that issue up on the floor if you so desire. Members, Representative Mueller, we're ready for your vote. Closing comments?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to briefly address those few items too, that there has been a fiscal report prepared. There is no cost to the judiciary, so we felt confident in not sending it there. Regarding departures, judges currently can make departures if there are substantial and compelling reasons to do that. This bill requires a judge to decide if there are substantial and compelling reasons for the departure. And then just to correct something, county attorneys represent the state. They represent the people of Minnesota and what's in the public's best interest. And while county attorneys work very closely with victims and try very hard to represent the interest of victims, at the end of the day, county attorneys represent the people of Minnesota. And I'll just note, as somebody who's been a prosecutor for 20 years, someone who's been in the victim advocacy world for a number of years, there are very strong victim protections in this. In fact, the Minnesota Coalition Against Sexual Assault supports this bill in part because of the victim involvement in it. So I would be glad to talk further with any members who have questions about this, but I'm really excited about this bill, Mr. Chair and members, and hope to get your yes vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Mueller. With that, the chair renews his motion that House File 901 as amended be referred to the General Register. The clerk will take the roll.
Chair Mariani.
Aye.
Chair Mariani, aye. Vice Chair Frazier.
Aye.
Vice Chair Frazier, aye. Representative Johnson.
No.
Representative Johnson, nay. Representative Edelson.
Aye.
Representative Edelson, aye. Representative Feist.
Aye.
Representative Feist, aye. Representative Grossel, excused. Representative Hollins.
Aye.
Representative Hollins, aye. Representative Hewitt.
Aye.
Representative Hewitt, aye. Representative Cleavorn.
Aye.
Representative Cleavorn, aye. Representative Long.
Aye.
Representative Long, aye. Representative Lucero.
No.
Representative Lucero, nay. Representative Mueller.
Mueller votes no.
Representative Mueller, nay. Representative Novotny.
No.
Representative Novotny, nay. Representative O'Neill.
O'Neill, aye.
Representative O'Neill, aye. Representative Pinto.
Aye.
Representative Pinto, aye. Representative Poston.
Poston, no.
Representative Poston, nay. Representative Raleigh.
Raleigh, aye.
Representative Raleigh, aye. Representative Vang.
Aye.
Representative Vang, aye. Representative Zhang.
Aye.
Representative Zhang, aye. That concludes roll call with 13 ayes, 5 nays.
Thank you. With 13 ayes and 5 nays, House File 901 as amended is referred to the General Register. Thank you, Representative Mueller. Very good bill. Thank you for bringing it forward. I appreciate the debate here today. I appreciate your presence, Ms. Blout from California. And to my county attorney, John Choi, always appreciate you having you with us.